We are now live and recording. Welcome everybody. My name is Jennifer Morgan. I'm the Hunter Ed Coordinator for the New Mexico Game and Fish out of the Albuquerque office. This is our November social hour and super excited because our very own Stephanie is going to talk to us about quail hunting and bird dogs and how cool they are. And what's I think is super cool is she's literally sitting in her truck because she was out today on the quail opener. So I think that is super awesome that she's literally conducting this from the field. So I think that's super cool. So I will let everybody introduce themselves. And for those of you who are new to our social hour platform, if you would please introduce yourself in the chat if you're able, and let us know where you're from. And if you guys do have any questions at any time, you can use the chat to ask questions, and the rest of us will be moderators and kind of looking through that chat to bump Stephanie if she has any answers to your questions at that time. If you want, you can hold off to the end. It's totally up to you. And of course, if you're able, we love to see everybody's bright, shiny faces. So you can turn on your computers if you have, or your camera is on if you have the ability to do so. But if not, we understand if you can't. So again, welcome everybody. And I'm going to pass the baton over to Colleen. Then we'll introduce Tristana, and then we'll pass it over to you, Stephanie.
All right.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Colleen Payne. I'm the public information specialist out of the Southwest area and work out of the Las Cruces office. And I'm going to be helping with some IT things tonight, so bear with me.
I'm sure you'll do great, Colleen. I'm Tristana Bickford. I am the Assistant Chief of Education for the Department of Game and Fish, and welcome everybody.
Okay, Stephanie,
Right.
it
Is that my
all
turn?
you. It is all you.
It is
have
all
the
me.
floor.
It's my show. Oh,
It's your
boy.
show.
My name is Stephanie Walton, and I am the Assistant Hunter Education Coordinator with the New Mexico Department of Game and Fish out of the Albuquerque office. But I am not in the Albuquerque office today. I am out in some quail country. Just got finished about 15-20 minutes ago, wrapping up the quail opener, and been hunting since 7:30 this morning. And pretty much nonstop. I think I even forgot to eat lunch. So, hey, Jennifer, guess what I had to eat all day? Yep.
Twizzlers.
Yep. Ding, 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 ding. It's my favorite hunting snack. It goes great on the road. But anyways, I really appreciate Jennifer and the ladies letting me do this talk tonight. Quail hunting is near and dear to my heart, and it's a topic that I feel like we don't talk about enough. Small game hunting is extremely rewarding, and big game is great too, but I think you can learn a lot from small game, especially quail for sure. So Colleen, if you want to switch, oh, and the picture here is my handsome Sven dog. He's an English setter, and that was our first quail together. I will disclose that I am no quail hunting expert. I only got my first quail last year, but I got it as much as I can, and I've learned a lot in the past few years that I started. So I hope I can pass along what I've learned to you guys and help you guys out in the field. All right, for those of you who don't know, we have 4 subspecies of quail here in New Mexico. And we are the only state that has 4 subspecies of quail. We have the northern bobwhite quail, the scaled quail, Montezuma quail, and Gambel's quail. For tonight, I've hunted primarily scaled quail and Gambel's quail, so we're probably just going to stick to those for tonight. I hope to focus more on Montezuma quail this year, since the forecasts for them are much better than they have been in the past due to the rains. So maybe I can report back on that on next year. You can go ahead and switch. So why do I advocate so much for quail hunting? I think it's great for people just starting out and hunting. It's where I got my start. There's limited gear required. All you really need is a shotgun and some ammo, your boots, a game strap or a game vest. Game straps are pretty cheap, and a New Mexico game license and stamps. So you just get out and you walk around. So it's pretty easy to get started. I know some of the other game to hunt in New Mexico, it requires all the camo and the yada yada, and this just isn't one of those, and I feel like it's a great starter. So I think for those that want to get started in big game, it is a great, I'm gonna be opening and closing my door, so sorry, because I got to keep the lights on. I think it's a great starter because a lot of this, especially if you don't have dogs, but as well as when you do have dogs, it's a tracking game. So you really develop those skills and looking for tracks, looking for scat, and even listening. This is a listening game too. So these are very small birds that you're looking in huge landscape. So I think, I don't want to knock the big game hunters, but man, I think people that quail hunt, we've got it a little bit tougher because we're trying to find little bitty birds in a big terrain. So that landscape you can walk for a long time. And if you even think that a quail has even a 1 mile radius, you have to find that one spot where that radius is at and still walk that 1 mile radius and find the perfect spot where they're at. So it is challenging, but a lot of fun. The places that quail hunting will take you to is pretty incredible. When I started this out, I really didn't like the desert terrain and the open terrain. I liked more of and a quail just flew by my window right now. I liked more of the trees surrounding me. And the open terrain really kind of freaked me out. It's very vulnerable. And it really helped me get past that. And I enjoy the heck out of it now. So I also think, man, a lot of people when they hunt, they say they do it for the dogs, and there's a reason for it. When you watch a dog work that huge terrain, whether we'll talk about what kind of dogs there are, but when you talk about, a pointing breed or a fleshing breed, even the fleshing breeds are just cool as heck to watch them go back and forth. And when a dog gets a whiff of a quail at its nose and just slams to a stop, there's no quite feeling like it. It's just incredible. And if you have the opportunity to get out and watch a dog work, I highly encourage it. And my all-time favorite thing about quail hunting, and a lot of this happened today, and I love this meme a friend of mine created. So when quail covey up for the evening, they stay warm in these circles facing outwards. And when you flush them, it's like stepping on a landmine, because this big explosion, if you don't have dogs and they haven't pointed or whatever the case, it still can just surprise the heck out of you. And it's just a lot of fun. It's a big old rush. So I highly encourage everyone to get out and try it. Colleen, you can go to the next slide. All right, habitat and e-scouting. From what I have noticed, there's a lot that, could be a lot that you could look for, but there are a few main things that I have noticed, especially in the past year getting out, where I have seen quail time and time again. So there's my little Kipp, my English cocker, sitting in front of a mesquite bush. These mesquite have these little bean type of things on them, and they love to eat them up. It could also used for cover for them, just because there's a lot of thorns in there. So it protects them from predators. And then below that, so this is I think it was a desert thorn bush. And Jennifer, you told me not too long ago, Jennifer probably just gets tired as all get out of me talking about quail, but it happens when we're on road trips and I say, oh, that looks like good quail country. And she had said that somebody had told her that if these aren't as big as a Volkswagen Beetle, now this is an extreme picture, this one was just giant, as big as a Volkswagen Beetle, then it's not good cover for them. And that's pretty true. This bush is very, very dense, and really hard to get into. And I actually took this picture while there was a red-tailed hawk flying over, and some Gambel's quail had just flushed out of one of these bushes. So that's how thick they are. They stay in there, so things like red-tailed hawks or other predators can't get in there. However, my little Kipp dog there, that's what's great about little flushing dogs. They go in and they just go to town and thrash around and pop those babies right out, which is a lot of fun to watch. And then up top there, there's Sven dog on point. He's in some cholla with some grass. This is a lot of times in those grassy areas with cholla, you'll find scale quail. But to tell you the truth, I have almost each time I've found Gambel's quail, I found scale quail at the same time right nearby. So there's a lot of justification where there's grassy lands and stuff like that, which is totally true. But I find a lot of them in the same territory. And when you go to e-scout areas, like where are you going to go? How do you pick a spot to check out? And that's what you're doing. You're just going to be checking out, because you can't tell if through Onyx if these desert thorn bush are going to be there or not. You just can't. And they really like to eat those. Actually, a scaled quail that was taken tonight we took its crop apart, and it had one of these, or the berries from this bush in there. So they really do like to eat those berries. But as far as e-scouting, if you look for these drainages, if you scroll in really close, your Onyx will show these blue dotted lines. That indicates washes. So where waters rush through there during our summer monsoons. And you can indicate that they'll be pretty green in there too. Those are good spots to go check out. And then on this yellow one, you can see where it kind of forks at the top here, where this pin is, this quail pin. And I noticed a lot of times they like to be where those washes fork. There tends to be a lot of good bush there and good cover. Just a cool tip that I've noticed and that nobody showed me before. So I would really try to get in those areas where they fork out. And that was really helpful. So we can go on over to the next slide. So quail hunting tactics without dogs. I completely understand that not everybody wants to get into the dedication and the time commitment that bird dogs take. So I am also the president of the Quail Forever chapter here in New Mexico, and our secretary, Mackenzie, she gets out quite a bit to hunt quail, and her tactic is she will find these water areas, whether it's a cattle tank or a wildlife drinker, and she'll walk around in kind of like a zigzag fashion around there, and she'll listen. And you gotta listen close. Sometimes if they're really close, you can hear them really well, but if they're in a far off distance, you gotta be real quiet and listen. And she does this right at sunlight. It's when they go to water, and that's when they're calling. When they go to water and they kind of spread out, they're going to call to each other to come back in. So if you want to go ahead, and I want to play some of Gambel's quail sound so you can get familiar with what you would be listening for. So that's one of my favorite sounds. That's a rooster calling. I think it's just so cool. And when you can hear them do that, that means there's hens around, and he's calling everybody back to him to huddle up. And then, so there's one more sound that you really should be on lookout for. And if you do hear this, then get your gun ready because they're probably about to explode. And my dog started thrashing around a little bit in there too, and that was playing. But that's how they talk to each other, communicate a little bit, especially when they're in those, thorn bush, and they're kind of they just walk around and talk to each other like that. And it's the cutest thing ever. And I love that sound. But I know that when I do hear it, I need to get ready because they will probably explode at any moment. And then so the number one tactic that I use, even when I do have dogs that look for tracks. So I showed you those drainages that I look for on Onyx, and you really just walk those. I'm telling you, walk them up and down, walk down one drainage, walk up another, and look for these tracks. And if about 20 or 30 minutes goes by and you don't see anything, then it's probably time to move on to another spot. And that's what this game really is. It's find and sign. If you don't see anything quick, don't waste your time there. Get to another drainage to look for some tracks. So those are examples of quail tracks right there. I mean, so cool when you do see them. They're little highways. It's the cutest thing ever. But definitely a sign that you're in the right area. We can move on. So upland bird dogs, there's two categories here. There's the pointing breed and the flushing breeds. Sorry, I think I have a bird dog hair in my mouth, which I got to get out real quick. Tastes delicious. So there's a pointing and the flushing breeds. Here is my dog Sven, and this is a great woman up in North Dakota. She works for Quail Forever and Pheasants Forever with her field-bred English cocker. They're a great duo. So we can go ahead and I'll show you some of the more popular pointing breeds and flushing breeds. The more popular ones that you're going to see quite a bit are the German short hair pointer, the German wire hair pointer, English pointer, a Vizsla, a French Brittany, and an English setter. Those are all that I've seen pretty much, especially here in New Mexico. The one that's pictured here is a German wire hair pointer. You'll see quite a bit of those. They're pretty popular just because their breeds or their beards are just so darn cute. But as with any dog that you get, I will say how important it is to get to know the breeder that you're going to work with, to get references of the breeder you're going to work with and their dogs. And it's kind of inconvenient, but if you can, hunt with the parents on wild birds. To me, that's more important than them taking you out in their yard and showing you how they point or how the parents point pigeons, for example. I've had a bad experience. I got a bird dog on a whim and I didn't do my research, and that dog is now a pet to somebody in Florida, which is not a decision you have to make lightly. But if the bird dog doesn't bring you joy in the field and you don't have fun with it, you're not going to have fun either. And it just doesn't make for a very good experience. So when I was looking into getting another one, an English setter, the gentleman was recommended to me. His name's Kevin Jackson out of Montana. And he was like, I really think he was the one who suggested that I hunt with his dogs first, because his dogs are very far ranging dogs, more than a lot of these that you'll see normally. And luckily he comes out to New Mexico during the winter time to escape the Montana winters. So we were able to make that work. And it was a great experience because then I saw what those dogs could do. And at that point, I didn't have any doubts. I knew what I was getting. I knew the lineage that was coming along, and genetics is what makes these dogs. It just is what it is. You cannot make a bird dog. Well, I can't say you can't, but it is highly unlikely that you make a bird dog out of any dog that comes along. So that's just something to keep in mind if you are looking into this. And we can go on, I guess I got on a tangent. We can go on to the fleshing breeds real quick. So that spiel goes into these breeds as well. I have pictured here the Bushes. George Bush was a big bird hunter, and his English Springer Spaniel Millie there, they were quite famous. And I thought that was so cool that we had a president that openly bird hunted. I think that's quite something that we should look forward to when we have a president. And just a personal opinion. So then we have a lot of the fleshing breeds that are popular are Boykin Spaniels, Labrador Retrievers, Golden Retrievers, and field-bred English Cocker Spaniels and English Springer Spaniels. I recently got earlier this year a field-bred English Cocker Spaniel. And I gotta say, I was a little skeptical how it was gonna work out in the desert. And I took him out a couple of weeks ago just to do some scouting and to put him on some birds without hunting, of course. And man, it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to see him get in there and just thrash around in some brush when there were birds and then come flying out. Just a really cool experience. But a lot of these fleshing breeds are retrievers as well. Some of the pointing breeds are too. It just kind of depends on the genetics and how much you work with them, I think, on the retrieving part. We can go to the next slide. As far as the training goes, training is a huge commitment. Not only if you send your dog to a professional trainer, or if you train your dog yourself, both are huge commitments. And you can, of course, there's plenty of reputable breeders across the United States that do well with training. I've seen training go from $600 to $1,000 a month, just kind of depending on what you get. But that's something to keep in mind as cost. I have sent a dog to a trainer before, and I'm also my Sven dog here. I'm training myself just because he's an easy dog and I feel like I can do it. Of course, with the coaching of his breeder, of course. So I think it's something that anyone can obtain, but there's no shame whatsoever in sending a dog to a trainer either. Just keep in mind when you do send that dog to a trainer, he still needs to be, or that dog still needs to be worked with at home. So I think a lot of expectation is, I'm sending the dog to the trainer, it's going to come back. I could put him up for 6 months out of the year, and he's going to go out into the field and hold his point. And he still needs to be worked with on those commands. There's no perfect dog, so they will all make mistakes. That is 100% truth. And so don't ever expect your dog to perform 110% of the time. They're animals, they make mistakes just like we do. And if you did decide to do training yourself at home in the field, there is a great organization here in New Mexico. They're the NAVDA chapter, or the ZIA of the NAVDA chapter, and some great people out there. They have training days where you can come out and pay for some birds and get help training your dog and advice on training your dog. I've gone out there myself. I know the folks, I've hunted with those folks, and they're really cool and super gentle. especially when handling your dogs and you, which is important. So if that was something that you were interested in, I could certainly put you in touch with those people. During the hunting season, training days kind of go to the wayside and they start picking back up in the spring. Go on to the next. All right, tactics with bird dogs. I think one misconception I had is that quail hunting was going to be easier with a dog, which there's some truth to it and not so much. Again, when I let, say, Sven out, for example, and he's the English the English setter there. Sorry, I was going to say English cocker, the English setter. I'm going to let him run out for a minute, and then I'm going to direct him in a direction where I think looks like good habitat. Like I said, it maybe has those desert thorn brush, or I'm on some tracks. Like say he decides to go left, but I'm on tracks, so I want to call him back to my direction. My cue for that is this way. And if I throw my arm out, he looks at me and he'll go that way. However, there are some times where the dog knows better than you. They smell better than you and they can hear better than you. And this is where that bond really comes in, and where I just feel like bird dogs are so rewarding, is that bond and that relationship that you guys have when you're working together is I tell you what, and my husband would kill me for saying this, but it's better than my marriage. It's so cool. Our communication is so excellent. And when he throws a point, sometimes he's off, but most of the time he's pretty serious about it. And so I've walked up on him so mad because he won't come my direction. But instead he proved me wrong, and he finds the birds. So really all my tactic is hunting with birds, is looking for those tracks, listening, and watching my dog, and directing him if he needs it, and trying to stay as patient as possible in the process. So we could go to the next slide. Etiquette. I wanted to talk a little bit about this because I feel like it's something important and not really talked about. And I'm not talking about not just, hunting the same area when you see another vehicle in that area. I'm talking about when to go find birds, when to scout, when to call it a day. So really, if you are going to go scout, I go scout just like I would for big game. I go look for areas. It's not always works out the same like it did today. I scouted 2 weeks ago and came out to the same area, and one of the big coveys that I had found just wasn't around. But that's the name of the game. And you really want it, as far as scalies and gambles, you really want to leave those birds alone. May through August, possibly April through August, they're breeding and they're hatching their chicks, and you really don't want to separate those babies from their parents. You really want to keep them all together, just to not really prevent the loss, but try to keep that loss at a minimum of those chicks. Let them do their thing so that we can have fun in the during the season. And then I really feel that it's important when you're out to keep an eye on, when you do find those coveys, keep an eye on how many birds are in those coveys. Is it really small? Is it like a 3 to 4 covey? Like there was one covey today where I only saw 3 of the gambles. which was kind of sad because that covey last year was about 12. And if you see such a small covey, you don't want to take all of them out. Probably if there's such a small covey as 3, you probably just want to leave those birds alone. If you see, 6, 7, I usually go with, if there's at least 8, I will only probably take 1. And if I could take more, maybe, or maybe not, I could, but usually my 1 shot is all it takes. And I just get 1 because I'm not a great shot. And that's all there is to it. So I really think that, yeah, keep an eye on that number of the covey. If you see a 30 bird covey, I mean, of course, you probably don't hunt the limit and cut that covey in half. That wouldn't be very cool. But it's not about getting limits. It's about getting out there and having fun, and making sure that we have a little bit more to hunt the following year. And I just hope you take that into consideration, and talking about time too. Like I wrapped up about 4:45 today. The sun went down about 5:30. So I wanted to, we didn't end up finding any birds the last place we stopped, but I want to give those birds enough time to covey back up, especially when it gets really cold. They need that covey to stay warm and stay alive. So you really want to give them that grace period to get back together, and not get taken up by some predators in the meantime when they're trying to get back together. Just some things to keep in mind when we're talking about etiquette in the field. Safety. Oh man, please keep your zones of fire in mind. If you want to click Colleen a couple of times more on the slide, I think, or maybe 2, just once. There you go. Because your friends and the bird dogs you hunt with, they depend on that. They depend on you knowing those zones and for them to be safe. I have known several people that their bird dogs have been shot. Some of them have turned out okay. Some of them have passed because of these incidences. And when I'm talking about zones of fire, I'm talking about vertical zones of fire too with those dogs in the field. You don't want to shoot at the ground ever. I always say if you could see blue behind the bird, then it's safe. So if you could see blue sky behind that bird that you're about to shoot with my dog in the field, then it's safe to shoot. And always keep your other zones of fire in sight too, just because, especially like this group I hunted with in Montana, this group of ladies, which was a fantastic experience. We all had to know where each other was when birds flushed in that field, because we didn't want anything to happen to each other, and we didn't want to be responsible either for anything happening to each other. So your friends and those bird dogs definitely hold you responsible and knowing those zones of fire. Oh, special thanks. How many do we have on tonight?
I think we have, minus us, we've got 12, I believe. So 12 participants. Yeah.
12 participants. Cool. So everyone is going to get this koozie from her upland. If you guys can see it or not, I have no idea. It's really cool. Her upland really supports women in the field, and they put on all kinds of cool upland bird hunting events, dog training events. They're based out of Montana. Hopefully one day we can grab them down here and do something cool, but everybody's going to get one of these koozies. It has a cool chart on it with the upland species and the chokes that you should use with your shotgun and the size of your pellet that you should shoot. If you ever go out of state, for example, to hunt chucker, I always get confused of what size shot that I should use and what choke I should use for those birds. It's just super helpful, and I think are really cool, and I think it'll help you out too. So it has quail on there as well. So I hope you guys enjoy that koozie. And then one lucky person will be drawn to get this pheasant, quail, and cottontail cookbook. I love this cookbook. It is so fun. It's by Hank Shaw, and Quail Forever donated that book. So we want to thank them for that. And we will notify that winner, I guess, after tonight, right?
Yeah, and then how we'll work it is we have everybody's email that registered to participate, and so you'll get an email from Stephanie with gathering your mailing information for everything, and then she'll probably conduct the drawing. We could either conduct it tonight or tomorrow, and then she'll notify that winner.
Fantastic. Well, that's all the presentation I have for you guys. I would be willing to answer any questions you have if I know the answer, and help you any way that I can when you get out there this season.
We had several people that were introducing themselves in the chat that it sounds like they're big game hunters, and congratulations to Zoe. She just got her first mule deer, so that's super exciting. So shout out to her. But a lot of them are saying that they're interested in quail hunting, and so I think that's super awesome. And
that is awesome. I think that it brings a lot to the table when it comes to you looking for big game later. It really develops some skills, like I said, just on tracking and the listening aspect. And I know I've gotten better at it, and each time that I go out. So I think it's really cool too, and I hope everybody does it. Zoe, congratulations. I know Zoe, and she's great. And yeah, I hope you guys get after it.
And Elaine just said that she's got a 16-week-old German short hair, and it's going to training in 2 weeks. So that's cool.
Oh, fantastic. That'll be a lot of fun. Yeah, those German short hairs can be pretty versatile too. You can even have them as a duck retrieving dog. So that's really cool.
So I think, and I don't want to assume here, but I think most of the folks that are on board with us this evening are probably not hunting with dogs. I myself have not had the opportunity to hunt with dogs, but I have been on hunts where we're using dogs, and I think it's super cool. But don't think that you can't hunt quail if you don't have dogs. I've been on and off quail hunting for probably about 15 years when I get a chance to go. And you can be just as successful hunting on your own, but I want to reiterate what Stephanie pointed out is looking for areas that have water, and not the big tanks, but if you saw her picture with Sven on the tank and you had the residual overflow, that's where your birds are going to go for water, typically is on the ground and not up on a tank. And so look for those tracks. One of the things that I noticed while I was scouting for my deer hunt earlier this year, there's merns mostly in the areas that I was hunting deer, and the seed with all of the late season and mid-season monsoons that we have, there is so much forage out there. So listening to them is very key, because you won't see them if they're on the ground because there's so much ground cover. So listening and looking for tracks is really, really key. But quail hunting is so much fun. It's something that you can do all day. It's not like big game hunting when you have these tiny little windows and you're just waiting to see an animal. You can do it all day, and it's really a lot of fun, and you can take any skill level of individual out. And what I love about small game hunting is that you get a lot of trigger time. You have a lot of opportunity. Big game, it's one and done, but you're done for the whole season for deer or whatever it is. But with small game hunting, you can start today, just like Stephanie did, right out of the gate, and you can go all the way through the season. And if you're not seeing cubbies in one area, then go try somewhere else. But one of the things that Stephanie also said is that etiquette is so important. The reason why sometimes the cubbies are so small is because they get over hunted. And so if I were to take a couple of birds from a covey of 15 and then another hunter finds them the next 2 days and then they take more, and now we're down to a covey of just a couple. So it's that conservation mindset, and to use that etiquette while you're afield. And sometimes it can be really tough hunting without dogs when coveys get educated. A lot of the times they won't even flush. They'll either hole up or they'll run along the ground and you'll never see them. I've seen that happen a lot with scale quail down in the southeast area of the state. Is they get super smart, super fast, that if they flush, it's not a good thing. So that's where the dogs would definitely come in handy, because they run super fast. I don't know if any of you guys have seen a quail run, but those little legs are just like, it's crazy. So but it's so much fun. But I'll open up the floor. I didn't see any questions come in.
I think there was one question that just came in.
Yes, you are correct. It's from Kira. Is there a specific time in the season you prefer to hunt? Does the weather moon affect the hunt like it does big game?
Not so much the moon that I've noticed, the weather, like when it's really cold in the mornings, even like this morning, they tend to not move as much. So that's something to keep in mind. Like, so if there is going to be a huge cold front, I will wait till it gets to about that, 32 degrees. If not, though, I mean, cold weather and them holding tight is great for the dog aspect of it. And I mean, if you're willing just to, walk around too and find those birds, I mean, they will flush if you come by them and they're covied up. So I typically I just like to hunt cloudy weather because I really like hunting cloudy weather, but it's good for the dogs. The sun's not beating down on them. But I would say, I mean, no, not really. You can, just get out there anytime and it's going to be just as fun. And you'll see them. I haven't really noticed. So of course rain would be a factor. They're not going to move a whole lot when it rains either. They're going to be really hunkered down and not willing to move when they're in their cover areas.
Thanks, Steph. And then Edna has a question about, can you call quail? We were kind of talking about that before the session started.
So yes, you can. And I know Casey Cardinal, our wonderful game bird biologist, that's how she does her quail counts. So what she'll do is she'll head out, like I said, probably in the mornings or, towards that sunset, and she will throw out a call. And sometimes a rooster will call back. It's not maybe the most effective as actually just, getting your feet out there and walking around. But it's certainly a tactic that people used. I have not used it yet, but I would like to use it in the future just to say that I tried it and try it out. I mean, and who's to say, I mean, if you want to do that, man, go for it and let me know how it goes.
Yeah, we were talking pre-session, and when we used to have a youth quail hunt down and around the Socorro area, and one of our guides, he had brought a quail call with him, and it sounds like a little Gamble's call, just like the sound clip that we played. And it's basically just to locate. If you call that out and you don't hear anything, more than likely there's probably not quail in the area. And so just kind of move and do that as locator call, kind of like bugling elk. You're going to call and see if you get a response, and if you don't, then more than likely they're not going to be in the area. So, but that's how I've seen it used, and it was pretty effective. I don't know if they make calls for scales and Bob White and Montezuma, but they could be out there. Probably some Google searches.
Yeah, if you just Google search like the different calls, the scale quail calls and the Montezuma, they all sound different. So definitely research those and get those embedded in your mind, because they do all sound different. And some of the calls that they make they can be a little complicated. Like I wouldn't be able to pick some of those out, especially on the scale quail and the Montezuma part. Those are really hard calls to hear sometimes.
Yeah, and that's one thing that, and I showed Stephanie some video clips of some merns that that I found on some scouting trips. And what I thought was amazingly cool, and I've never seen this with quail before, but we found a small covey with a rooster and some hens and some chicks. Well, this year's chicks, they were quite a bit older. And what he did was the rest of the covey held back in the cover, and he literally, a killdeer will do this, is he was trying to pull me away from the rest of the covey. So literally kind of sacrificing himself, like, hey, pay attention to me. You know, if I were a predator, he would have been an easy meal and I would not have affected the rest of the covey. So I thought that behavior was super amazing, and I was able to get it on my phone and the video. So it was super, super cool. But yeah, their sounds that they made were so totally different than anything else. And it was more complex to me, I thought, than any of the rest of the quail species as well. So so the chattering and some of the other sounds were super, super cool that I got on video. So we have Zoe did ask a question. She said, I have a newbie question, is how do you define what is a separate covey? If you see 10 or 15 quail in one draw and another similar size group in an adjacent draw, you know, are those considered different or are they the same?
So that's actually, I was thinking about that today, because some of them you just don't know. I mean, they can spread out. It's easier, I guess, if there's a scale quail in one area and gambles, you know, in the same area, that's pretty easy to define. But if we're talking about numbers, that is something I don't know. But I will tell you that when there's a small covey and there is a say like gambles, and there is a bigger covey somewhere else, maybe close by, a couple of miles away, they will try to gang up with or get together with another covey, with that bigger covey, because they like to be together. They like numbers, so that will happen. I think Casey told me when I was asking about how far they traveled, the longest recorded distance of a scale quail travel was 40 miles. And so these guys move. I mean, I'm not saying that all scale quail are going to travel 40 miles every day, but I mean, you're talking a couple miles, and for a little bird to be successful at that, and not get taken up by a predator, is pretty stinking impressive.
Yeah, I think you said Casey had said something about Merns had a huge home radius as well, which that blew my mind.
Yeah, so she cleared, so I was wrong about that one. I think she said the Merns is about 1 to 2 miles.
Okay, it's a little tighter than the rest.
Yeah, and then the gambles and the scalies, they have the bigger range.
It's pretty impressive though for something so small.
Yeah, and like I said, I mean, even today I had scouted a couple weeks before, and I was so excited because there was this great big covey of scale quail and about like 25 birds. So I was really excited to find those, and they just were not around. I mean, we walked 5 miles in that one area where I had found them and just couldn't find them. So they moved, and so they're not always going to be in the same area. That's why I feel like somebody giving you a pin maybe to go is not going to be the most helpful way for you to get out and be able to find those quail. Getting out and looking for, you know, those brush or those mesquite, that's really in you learning that yourself is going to be the most helpful way to figure that out and figure these birds out. And then even when you do have them figured out, they throw you a monkey wrench, just like they do me all the time.
And then we have another question from Kira, is what length of barrel would be the best for quail?
So the length of the barrel is really going to depend on you and what you're comfortable with. I know for me, when I hold a shotgun, I think mine's a 26-inch length. That's just what I feel more stable shooting. Some people which is weird because I'm very tall. So the shorter barrel, I should be able to shoot the longer barrel, but that's just what I feel comfortable with. So when you go say to Cabela's or wherever to go get a shotgun, really getting that properly fitted to you is so very important. Before I have the gun that I have now, and maybe that's not even fitted to me properly, but it's better fitted now than my gun that I was using before. I was using a different gun, and I was getting on Quail with my dog's breeder. He was down from Montana, and I kept missing. Number one, because they get really excited when they flush. And so I'm really slow to pull up my gun and shoot because I get so excited and end up watching them. So that's one problem, but I kept missing, and he gave me his gun to shoot with, which was a shorter barrel. And it was much easier for me to maneuver with that shorter barrel to move around. And I'll just throw in a little thing. Jennifer and I had talked on our way home from a hunting camp, our hunter ed camp a few weeks ago. And man, if you guys can get out and do some shooting with a shotgun, I much prefer shooting a shotgun than a rifle. It's just my personal preference. But Jennifer mentioned to me that maybe some people just think that the shotguns are more intimidating, and that's not something that was so aware to me because I was so much more comfortable shooting a shotgun at first. But if you know somebody that has a shotgun, have them take you out because it is so fun. I know Tristana used to, I think, shoot skeet or something, if I'm correct. I know she helped me at a camp one time with shooting a shotgun, and it's so much fun. So if you could get out there and shoot some disc, I highly encourage it.
Absolutely. And one thing I want to build on what you're saying, Stephanie, is it doesn't matter what action type either. Right. If you've got that pump that you've had, that's okay. You don't have to go out and buy a semi-automatic shotgun to hunt upland birds. You just don't. I learned I took my very first quail with my grandfather's pump action Ithaca 20 gauge, and it was so much fun. And then I'm going to make fun of myself here for just a second, because when I actually went out and bought a semi-auto shotgun, my first reaction after I shot the first time was to pump it. I was not used to shooting a semi-automatic shotgun. And so I love it because it does everything for me and it reduces the recoil a little bit. But yeah, if you've got a single shot, that's totally fine. Because what's nice about that is it really makes you focus on one bird, because you know you have one shell in the chamber. And the other thing about upland hunting is you don't have to have a plug in your shotgun unless you're going to hunt migratory birds and upland at the same time. But you can have up to 5. And when you're hunting migratory birds, it's 3. So just know that there is a difference. And if you are going to be hunting migratory birds at the same time as upland birds, that you need to have a plug in your shotgun. But it doesn't matter what type of shotgun you have. I think, Stephanie, you have a 28 gauge. I've shot with a 20 and a 12. If you've got kids or maybe all you have is a 410, that's okay. It's perfectly acceptable. It's the pellet size that you're looking for. And it's just that upland game load is essentially what you're looking for. Now, if you're going to go pheasant and chukar, a little bit bigger birds, then your shells, your pellet size is going to go up in size. But other than that, it doesn't matter what gauge you're shooting. It has absolutely no effect on it whatsoever. And so I think that cool little koozie that Stephanie's going to send you is going to actually be super helpful, because sometimes I don't really know either. I'm like, I don't know if this is going to be effective or not. And plus the last thing you want to do is totally blast your quail if you're using too big of a shot, because quail are delicious. They are so good.
They taste like little pork chops.
Yeah, they are amazingly good. And so you don't want to waste the meat if you just blast it out of the sky.
And I will say I hunt with a break open shotgun, actually. I feel like it's the most easy to maneuver, and it's just my personal preference too. super easy mechanics on it for me. And that's really, and like Jennifer was saying, I hunt with the 28 gauge. So don't feel like if a 12 gauge is too intimidating for you, that is perfectly fine. If even 20 gauge is intimidating for you, that's perfectly fine too. Like you can even go 410. There's plenty options out there. And also too, if you're not, to go back a little bit, if you're not hunting with dogs, hunting jackrabbits is a blast. Those things explode just like quail do. They are a lot of fun. We saw plenty of those out there today. But also keep in mind that you make sure that you know what quail look like when they fly, because gosh darn it, if there weren't dove flushing today, and right now where we're at, dove season is no longer open. So just keep that in mind. Meadow larks can flush the same way, so just keep that in mind too. So what quail kind of do when they flush is they do this gliding thing, and I had a picture on my slide. If you guys want to go back when we post this and look at it, they hold their wings out, they flap a little bit, and then they hold their wings out and kind of glide about 30 yards, 40 yards sometimes. And so just maybe, for a little bit when you first start finding them, I know I had to do that because I was super insecure about knowing what was what. I would just watch, just because I needed to study those birds a little bit before I started shooting them.
Yeah, meadow larks will trip you up a lot. So what's really helpful is if you're able to go out in the field and kind of compare that, you can get on Google and look at that, or YouTube. There's a lot of different quail hunting YouTube videos that are I don't specifically have one that would be most helpful, but I mean, the internet is your friend. And that Dawn was asking a question, Stephanie, are there any field seminars available to teach where and how to hunt quail?
So the Quail Forever chapter here in New Mexico is just a year old, a little over a year old. So we're just getting started, but we sure hope to do some of that in the future. That chapter is called Enchanted Quail Forever. So if you're on social media, they're there, and we post everything, and we also do email. So if you want to join us, please contact me as well, and I can get you started with that. We certainly hope to get there in the future. I know that there's been some camp discussion stuff. It's all in the works. So if you just be patient, because I would absolutely love to get there.
Yep. And then Elaine was talking about squirrels are a lot of fun. Again, it's you just walk around the woods and you're listening and you're trying to find them. And we actually just hosted a squirrel hunting camp that was over in, I believe it was Comado, and it was for anybody. And so be on the lookout for opportunities that the department sends out on that. We had 12 spots, and we had 6 people, I think, should come and participate, and they had a blast. And then that was sponsored by the Game and Fish for that hunting camp. So just be on the lookout for emails from us. Let's see, Kira, I haven't gotten any emails from Quail Forever in a bit. Can you make sure I'm still on the list?
Oh, no, that's just because I'm a slacker and I've been super swamped. To tell you the truth, I used to be really good about sending out big old long emails, but the past 2, probably 3 months, my email response has been a little slow, so I apologize for that.
I'm probably not helping with that, so I'll take some blame on that one.
Honestly, it's probably since I started this job. No, I'm just kidding. But for sure, in the past, I've been just traveling like a mad woman, so that's really slowed me down, and there's been some other projects that have called my attention. So I hope to get back on that super soon.
And Stephanie had mentioned Casey Cardinal. She's our upland bird biologist with Game and Fish. And for those of you who have participated with us in the past, she's done some turkey and some small game social hours. But she is an awesome resource to reach out to about upland hunting. She's our turkey biologist, but she is a quail nut just as much, if not worse, than Stephanie. So she is an amazing resource, but to reiterate what Stephanie has said, it's literally just getting out there and getting your hiking boots a little dusty and trying to locate those coveys. And as they get pressured, they're going to move a lot. Some of those coveys might get broken up into 2 different ones, so that can be your advantage if they're getting a lot of pressure, because they're going to be calling a lot. So definitely be on point listening to those, listening for them.
No pun intended. On point. Yeah, and I mean, even if you just want to get some practice in, I think there are a few hunting, I don't want to say clubs, but like the 10 Club, and there is a new one, Graham, I think it's Zach Graham Hunting Club or something like that, Graham Hunting Club. And they will throw some birds out in their fields for you. And that's just, if you want to get some practice hunting them and shooting at them too. Because I tell you what, I feel like I could hit one of those clay pigeons pretty good. But then when I get out in the field and it's a real bird, I get too excited and then the game's over.
I know. Yeah, absolutely. And for some really good practice at a range, if you have that available to you, is try sporting clays. A lot of people like to do trap and skeet, which can be helpful, but a lot of the times the targets are kind of flying at a kind of predictable direction. So sporting clays, if you ever do that, it's a blast. I am terrible at it, but it is so much fun. And it literally will mimic birds flying through the air, because they will come from all different directions and speeds and everything. And so if you ever, I think Tinnins has sporting clays. And then the City of Albuquerque range out here has trap and skeet. But just look into your local shooting ranges for what's available and just get out there and practice. It's like anything else, whether you're archery hunting or rifle hunting, just getting familiar with your equipment and getting out there and getting confident with your equipment is key. It's not just you go to Cabela's and get the shotgun and take it right out there on your first quail hunt, because you're probably going to get super frustrated. So do a little bit of time on the range, get to know your equipment and what it can do, and the other thing is maximum effective range with your equipment, what you're shooting and the shells that you're using and your choke will make a huge difference. The last thing you want to do is use a full choke on a quail, because you will have no quail left. It will be a ball of feathers in the air, and that's all. So that's super important to know your equipment before you get out there. And you don't want to take a really far shot as well, because you might wound the bird and then never recover it. Because a lot of the times, if a quail is hit, it'll hit the ground and run. And I've seen scale quail run and go into a hole. And then you got to try to dig and find that bird to get out. So it's pretty amazing how they try to adapt to survive. So, or if they do hit the ground and run and they go into a hole, then you're never going to find them if you don't have a dog. So anyway, just get out there and enjoy that range time, because it's part of your hunt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think those points are all very key. And this quail hunting is something that I definitely feel confident now. And even when I got started, just going out by myself and doing. And so if that's something that you're looking to get out and you just need some alone time, this is your deal right here.
Awesome. Does anybody have any other questions for Stephanie or anything else to add? Colleen or Tristiana, anything else that based on your field experience?
No, I'm a pretty rookie upland game bird hunter too, so I learned a lot tonight. Thanks, Stephanie. And I'm sure we'll probably get some more questions. We've had a few come through on social media too, but I think with what you went over tonight, I'm able to answer those.
Oh, it's super cool, by the way. Totally unexpected this morning. I've never seen this in this area before. A lot of javelina, which yeah, interesting. I have not seen them here before, so that was fun to see. Man, about like 12 of them grouped together.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Definitely my favorite. Yeah, so we're gonna have our last lady social hour of the year next month, I believe. And we mentioned this a few sessions ago of talking about all the random things that we see in the field, and Stephanie just mentioned it too of, oh my gosh, I wasn't expecting to see this. So I think we were kind of looking to do more of a general discussion kind of with all of our attendees of some crazy stories you might have, or crazy things you might have seen in the field, or super really interesting or really good learning moments that we might just kind of have a campfire type discussion about and share some fun stories. So I think that's going to kind of be our last lady social hour of the year. I can't believe Thanksgiving's already next week.
It's really hard to believe already.
Yeah, but we really appreciate everyone taking the time to spend some time with us this evening. And thank you, Stephanie, for taking some time out of your opening day. Also, I think we all learned a lot.
Yeah,
Great,
thank
I
you.
sure hope so.
And Kira had one other question, and you might need to direct message her on this, but she was asking maybe where you were hunting. So, so maybe y'all can connect a little bit on the side and talk more about those kind of specifics for sure.
Yeah.
But that's what's kind of cool about quail is you'll find them pretty much all over southern, probably central to southern New Mexico. And
yeah, and a lot of the public lands areas, you know, they're going to be south of Albuquerque. There's just not a whole lot around town. Of course, there are quail around town, but just not in areas where you can go shoot them. So, you know, it's south of I-40. The main areas you're probably going to see are around the Rio Grande. There's a lot of popular areas that's easy access to water, and they have some good cover around there. But that, of course, they're definitely not limited around the Rio Grande. So you just, man, do that e-scouting and you can find some really cool areas where nobody else goes either. So
there you go. Awesome. So I think what we were thinking about for our last social hour for the year in December was, I believe, December 13th. You can correct me if I'm wrong, because it's not really in the middle of the holiday season. So be thinking of all those cool things that you guys have found or run into, or situations, or I know we've had a lot of new hunters that have joined us over the course of this year, and I would love to hear tips and tricks that you've learned during your adventures. And so come to us in December, and we'd love to hear all of the cool things and random things. I know we talked about random things that we have found while we're out and about. So bring all of that to the table here in a few weeks. And then somebody was asking about, want to know where all the, where all the javelina are when the seasons come. Yeah. Yeah. They get a copy of the rules and information booklet, I swear, because that's what happened on my deer hunt. I saw some deer before the season. I saw a buck, and then he never materialized for 5 days. Yeah. So I'm pretty sure they read the rule book. Yeah. So if nobody else has anything to ask Stephanie, again, if you think of something after session, please know that we are all here for any questions you might have. And especially if it's quail related, reach out to Stephanie and or Casey and pick their brains, because that's what I love about Stephanie. She's always so willing to help somebody else learn, which is awesome. And so I think if she makes another quail nut, she's super excited. So that is
my year will be made. I don't even need to shoot a quail the rest of the year. That's cool with me.
And she's taken some people out on some of their first upland hunts this year too. So kudos to her for giving back and sharing her knowledge is super awesome. So, but don't hesitate to reach out to us if something comes up, or maybe you go out and try it and it's an epic failure or a super success or something like that. But let us know. And ask away. We're always here for you guys, because I know things come up later on. You're like, oh, I didn't think about that in session. This session will also, because we recorded it, we'll get it posted on the Game and Fish website or the YouTube page. So be on the lookout for that, especially if you weren't able to join us right out of the gate. You can go back and view it, or pass it along to somebody else who wasn't able to make it. Well, great. Well, thanks everybody for your attendance this evening and for your continued support of our social session. And we look forward to seeing everybody in December. So everybody have a great night.